Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Hi.
So, what is your recovery date?
4/11/2019.
4/11/2019. So you just celebrated 5 years.
Yep.
That's awesome. Congrats. Five and a
Thank
half years now.
Yeah, yeah.
What was going on April 10th of 2019?
um I I had acquired if that's the right word, 7 felonies. I was facing 7 to 10 years in prison if convicted of all of them. And I got out on house arrest. I think it was 13 days prior to that. And in the 13 days prior to the April 10th, I had gotten 14 violations on my ankle monitor. And so when I went into court, the judge basically had him cut it off my leg and took me into custody and told me he wasn't letting me out again. So um, luckily, I had like a good group of people that clearly could see more in myself than I could see in myself at the time. And yeah, I have no felonies now. I was in treatment in lieu of conviction. So
Well, we'll get to that. Where'd you grow up?
Holland, Ohio.
Another Ohio person, I swear. I counted like 2 weeks ago. I went through all my episodes and I counted each time somebody from Ohio was on, and it was something like 22 or 17 or something like that.
Wow.
Like a ridiculous amount. And not all of them knew each other. There's one that like knew a bunch and kind of introduced the show to them, and then you know what I mean. But
Right.
it's been pretty random, and it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's just
Crazy to have all the same people or so many people from the same state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not from Ohio. I have only driven through Ohio. I have never like, made any friends in Ohio. Now I have a bunch of friends from Ohio
Right.
that I've never met in person, but we've been friends for years now. Um,
It's right outside of Toledo.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
It's like a suburb of Toledo, for real.
okay. So you're from Ohio. Um, Parents together, parents divorced at a young age.
My parents were divorced when I was 4. My sister was 2. But weirdly enough, have always remained really good friends and were friends before they got married. I don't know how many years they were together before they decided to get married, but I do know that the people I call my uncles are like my dad's best friends, but they're my mom's cousins. So, like my dad's mom comes over to eat dinner like almost every day at my mom's house and stuff. So they're all still really close.
No, that's good though. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife and her ex-husband are good friends to this day. They're better at co-parenting than they are at being married.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've seen it work out
Yeah.
firsthand. Um, so is it just you and your sister?
Just me and my sister. Yep.
And you're 2 years older, so you're the one that
Yeah.
had to make all the mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. My nieces, my sister has twins, and they always say stuff to me. Her son does really too. Her one daughter was like, "Aunt Jess, you're the little sister, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm the big sister." I think God got it backwards.
What did you discover first, drugs or alcohol?
Alcohol, definitely.
How old were you?
I started drinking pretty regularly when I was like 12.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
I was introduced to alcohol when I was 11, and my parents were together until my dad died. Like they were together for a long time, but they weren't big drinkers, but they knew how to throw a party.
Yeah.
So there was always leftover liquor in the basement, and they weren't tracking how much was being disappeared from because they forgot about it. They put it down there in storage and they forgot all about it. And I knew what it was. And
Right.
when I was 11, I tried it. And then when I was 12, I started using it as a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Like for being bullied or grief, I would drink to feel better. And that's me drinking as an alcoholic, in my opinion.
Yeah. So both of my parents are alcoholics. My mom will call my dad an alcoholic, but drinks every day just like him. So They are just very functioning alcoholics. Always have been. Um, Always, like, they've been working since they were like 13, like old school. And they've always had cars and houses and all of that. So very functioning. I think everyone on my mom's side really is. Everyone on my dad's side, my grandpa died when he was 49, 52. He was the oldest living male at the time on his side of the family. Um, yeah, so I grew up around, my parents knew how to throw parties and take us to parties. And, I grew up in a bar and all the local bars. Even when I lost my kids, they all knew, well, my two oldest. Um, Everybody at the bars knew who my kids were from my dad taking them there. Yeah, so pretty regular. And then when I was at the last treatment place I was in, a lockdown facility, they told me that it made sense why I chose heroin, because heroin and alcohol affect your brain the same way. So instead of drinking like my parents, I went a different route, to try not to be like them, or however you want to say it.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So you're drinking at 12, and you go to where you like going to school still?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep, I graduated. Graduated, started college, graduated pregnant. I graduated pregnant with my oldest daughter.
Okay. And
Yep.
how did you meet him? Not your daughter. I mean, how did you meet the dad?
In school.
Okay.
Yep.
You were a teenage mom. Did you have the baby while you were still, or did you have the baby when you graduated?
I graduated in June, had her in August.
So
So,
you were pregnant towards the end of your senior year.
yeah, real big.
So you met him in school. Are you still with him?
No.
Okay. I'm just trying to play catch up here. Were you so you weren't drinking a lot your senior year because you were pregnant?
I was pregnant. I didn't do how I found out I was pregnant. We were partying a lot, and we had went to get acid from one of the professors at the university, and
I loved acid. I
I never did it.
So you went to go get it and then you never even got it?
Yeah. Well, no, I got it. And then we got like some cocaine, and I think it was November. So like around the holidays, and we had a bunch of people. We were all together, and they got mushrooms, I think, too. And I decided to be an adult, and I was like, "Hey guys, I think I should go to Walmart real quick." And so I went to Walmart and got a pregnancy test, and it was positive. So everybody else had fun, and I didn't.
So you were late?
I said everybody else had fun, and I.
No, I mean you were late, like, and you realized I should get pregnancy tests because I'm late.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And it was my first time being pregnant, so it was all like I felt really weird. Now, my last son, I couldn't even tell I was pregnant, but all
Yeah.
the different changes that happen and whatnot.
That's I hate to say that's a shame because acid was so amazing. Uh,
That's what I hear.
I'm not trying to rub it in, but I had some great experiences. I never had a bad trip, and I'm not doing it now. I haven't done acid in 10 years. I'm 38. I
Yeah,
probably haven't done it in even more than 10 years if I was to think about it. I think the last time I did it was like in 2010. So 14 years ago was the
yeah,
last time I tripped. So, when I was introduced to opiates, I didn't really care about acid, if that makes sense.
yeah, definitely.
I didn't care about much. I didn't
Right.
care about.
Makes sense to me.
Had you tried anything else while you were in high school, or were you strictly a drinker?
I was really oblivious um, to things in high school. Like, I feel like a lot of people around me were doing it, but
How
I
old are,
I
how old are
didn't
you,
know.
Jess?
I'm 34.
Okay, so I'm 38, so we're
Yeah,
around the same age when it comes to growing up.
yeah.
So what were you saying? You're oblivious?
I was pretty oblivious to it. Like, I knew people used to take like Adderall. Like, a bunch of girls I went to school with took Adderall, and they were like losing all this weight and stuff. But um, my uncle was like, he's clean now. I don't know for how long, but was like a lifelong heroin addict. And so I always watched like what my mom and my aunt and grandparents went through with him. And then having my mom and dad drinking, to say I like never wanted to be like them would be a lie, because I think that they've always been really good parents, you know. But drinking was my thing. I think I was scared to do stuff. Even the first time I did ecstasy, I was scared to do it, and that was, when I was like 16. Um, and that was like really the only other thing I did. I smoked weed with everybody
It's weird
else, but
with E with ecstasy. I had a couple like they weren't even wasn't even that fun of a night.
yeah,
They kind of turned me off to like doing it again. Like the
yeah,
risk wasn't worth the reward.
yep,
So I did it twice, and I was like, okay, that's enough of that. And then I found acid. Like I did mushrooms, acid, and ecstasy all within the same 2 weeks. And I didn't like mushrooms because it hurt my stomach, and I'm a picky eater to begin with. And I didn't like ecstasy because it just made me feel weird. But I loved acid, but I couldn't like make a habit out of acid because it takes sometimes 18 hours to trip,
yeah,
and it's another 12 hours to recover from it. And I worked full time. I didn't have 30 hours a week to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
right, right,
so I did it like probably 10 times in my life, but it was, on the weekends when I was off work and shit. So you were oblivious, but you were still drinking. You graduate high school, you become a mom. Did you stay with your boyfriend?
Him and I were together for 9 years. I was working full time, going to school full time. Um, I had another baby. My oldest was born in 2008, the year I graduated, and the next one was born in 2012. So, in that period of time, I was going to school full time and working full time, and with their dad, who I don't speak to anymore. Um, I've never told them that they couldn't talk to him, but he really doesn't come around. He has his own problems. Pretty sure he's still using. I left him after 9 years because my dad gave me an ultimatum, to either get help or he was taking my kids. So that's when I left him. He wasn't willing to like do the stuff CSB wanted us to do and all that. And I was like, you know what? Done then. Um,
Had you graduated not from college, but did you at that point graduate from drinking into other shit?
that's like, yeah, basically about when it started. I, for like a year, was doing, their dad got painkillers. Like, I think he got Percocets. That's what he started off doing from the dentist. And I couldn't understand why he could stay up 24 hours a day and do all this stuff. And, and so one day I guess I just wanted to try it. I don't even really remember how it happened. I remember I took half of a Perk 5 and I felt really good all day. I do remember that because I was taking halves of fives for a very long time. Kicking ass in school, working, 8-10 hours a day. I was I was like Superwoman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did your dad threaten to take your kids away if you weren't like?
I remember going down there. I remember all of that. I don't really remember. I blocked a lot of stuff out. I don't really remember like what made him. I think everybody just knew, and I didn't know that anybody really knew. Because I had my own apartment for a period of time. My grandma used to take my daughter all like every weekend and take her to go do all kinds of stuff. I started being late to pick her up. I started asking for, money for diapers, stuff that I hadn't done before, I guess. And after I got clean, my dad finally told me that he used to sell cocaine and do it. So I'm sure he probably had more of an idea of what I was doing than what I ever thought anybody did, you know?
Yeah.
So, well,
What you mean you were using? So let me get this straight in my head. How when did you start seeing that guy? 16, 15.
junior year. So
So 16.
I was actually 15. I remember it.
Okay, so 15 to 24, you're with this dude.
Yep.
And when you were 24, you had two kids and a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old,
Yep.
right? So were you doing anything besides the perk fives at that point, or was he doing anything besides the perk fives?
Yes, it had escalated to like Opanas were really big back then before they switched it, and
You know how many people from Ohio have told me Opanis? Like 80% of the people that I've talked to from Ohio have specifically said Opanis were big. And
um,
it's just,
I'm
I
pretty
never
sure
even saw them. I never did one.
that's crazy. I'm pretty sure they were so, and I'm sure this is other places in the United States, but Toledo is a huge spot, like for everything. Like we're top for prostitution, STDs, all that stuff because we have the waterways, all the major highways, all of that. And people were just taking the highway back then when the pills were real big, taking the highway straight up to Detroit to all the pill mills and waiting like it's, you know, like a food stamp line. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
was pretty crazy paying doctors, you know, $50 a script and all that stuff. So
I did that. I did that in Jersey. I had a shady doctor. And you know how you need a referral to see a doctor from another doctor,
yeah.
usually? Well, you had to have a referral from another patient that
Oh,
you were on the up and up, like you were, and then they
that
only
was no problem for anybody, right?
said they had to take cash. They didn't take a debit card or anything. No insurance.
Yep.
And the first time I went there, I sat down and the doctor looked at me and goes, "So what you want?"
Oh,
And
it's easy.
and I was like, I thought it was a trick question. I was like, 120 30 milligram roxycodone and 120 Xanax bars. All right, see you in 28 days. On my way, went to Walmart, got them filled, and then I was off. Like
Good to go.
I was already off to the races in 2008, and this was 2012.
Oh
So I
yeah.
was well into my addiction when I got started doctor shopping.
Yeah.
I talked to one girl from Ohio that used to go to Florida 6 times a month. 6 times a month, they would drive to Florida with a car full of people, and they would come back with like 3,000 Roxys
Yep.
between the six of them, and they would do that 6 times a month. I'm like, holy shit!
They probably could pay their house payment and have, you know, take care of their
Plenty to get
addiction
high,
and all that. Yeah.
plenty to get high with.
Yep.
So, so Opanas were big in your 20s.
Opanas, Oxycontin. I seen Dilaudid a few times. I didn't like them.
It's a weird high, right?
Yeah.
I did them a few times. My buddy went to a shady doctor too, and that doctor was writing him 180 30s a month. And then they started becoming more strict on what they could prescribe. So
Mm-hmm.
he dropped them to 120 30s and then would give him 60 Dilaudid 8 milligrams, which is the strongest Dilaudid you can get.
Yeah.
And I snorted them, and it was like I would only felt good for like an hour, and then I was withdrawing again. It wasn't like a long half life,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't like that. I liked the Roxys where you were high for like 4 or 5 hours, and it was a good high.
Yep.
But the Laudits was like really instantaneous, but like it fell off really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying the Laudits, Opanas.
The Oxycontins, and then they switched all that stuff and made it so you couldn't, you know, break them down and all that anymore.
Yeah.
At that point, I we had got around, you know, that type of crowd of people by that point, and everyone had started getting busted for the pills. So all the doctors everybody was going to were getting closed down, and then that's when heroin became a thing. Um, he lost his job and would babysit our kids, when he felt like it. So I like remember one day I worked at a daycare too. I worked at a daycare for 9 years at this point. So it was like kind of really fucked up when I started getting in trouble and stuff, and lost my kids and all that. I obviously couldn't go to work without my kids. And so I called him one day and I was like, I can't drive. I can't sit still. Like, I was like pushing my feet all the way on the floorboards and like doing my hands next to me. And, I was withdrawing, but I just didn't know that at the time. That was my first like remembrance of it.
Yep.
I guess it had gotten that bad. We were doing like 10 tens a day and oxys and opanas and all that. And
So many
what
people have so many people have told me that they didn't know they were withdrawn when they first withdrew.
Yep.
And like I thought I legitimately had the flu. Like I went home from work early. I got some flu meds.
Yeah.
I laid down
Couldn't sit
and
still.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I thought I was just sick. And then I didn't think anything of it. I didn't take any pills. I withdrew for a couple of days. Again, thought I was sick for a couple of days.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, now I feel better. I'm going to go get high again. And then I went on high every day for like 2 months straight. And then I couldn't afford them one day. And I started feeling that sickness again. And I was like, oh shit, 2 months ago,
Yeah.
I was withdrawing. And that's what's happening now. So if I just go get more pills, I'll feel better.
Yep.
So I know that feeling of not understanding what was going on.
Yep. Same thing happens to me.
You were
Same
saying you
exact
called
thing.
him. You called him.
Yep. I called him and he was at a friend's house and he had both of my kids and I was on my way to school. I had just left work and he was supposed to bring me something and didn't that day. And he started getting greedy where he needed, more and more. And then he was like, oh, she's going to go to work and I won't have to deal with her all day. She'll go to work up until I couldn't go to work anymore. But he was doing heroin at the time and I didn't even know. So he was like, I got something, you'll feel better, whatever, whatever. So I did a little, like, he gave me like the smallest amount. And it was like, I had never felt that good before. Like, no matter how many perks I took and I still, even after that, kept doing pills. Even after I did that little bit of heroin that he gave me, I still kept doing pills because I was scared. Like I said, I was naive. I was scared to do stuff. I was the one that, like, when I said I didn't do acid before, I did it once. And I chewed it a couple of times and spit it out, and nobody seen me spit it out because I was scared. And I kept making excuses like, I gotta call my mom, I gotta wait, all this stuff. And then finally I was like, whatever, because they kept saying stuff to me about taking it. And so I did, but I spit it out. So I did actually do it once, if you want to consider that the one time. I didn't feel
I
anything.
will consider that the one.
And everyone was like, you don't feel like us, you're not acting like us. And I'm like, no, I don't feel it yet. But I was scared to do stuff. So pills is what I knew. And so I kept doing it even after I did the little bit of heroin and made it through like a good day and a half off that little bit until no one could really get pills anymore. And I really had no choice but to do it. So, I mean, I had a choice, but
Now, at this point, were you still with him?
yes. Yep. We were still together. I walked into somebody's house after work and school one day, and one of my good friends, well, I still talk to her kids and stuff. She's dead now, but we became really good friends. She had his arm tied up in the kitchen, and it was a house like everybody used to. It was like a party house for real. Everybody used to come in and out, and so I walked in. She had a belt around his arm in the kitchen, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "You know what? I can't do this." So I knew they did something different. I'd seen the needles. I'd never seen anybody do it before. None of that. They used to go in the bathroom and whatever. Like, so I wasn't like as oblivious as I was before at that time because I'd been around that kind of crowd of people. But I picked up my kids off the couch and I left. And I left him for 2 weeks. I didn't talk to him anything. And then there was a day where I couldn't do anything on my own, so I called him up and yeah, we were together. I can't even tell you how long we were together after that whole situation where he was, I guess he just was doing it longer than I thought, he was, and had started shooting up at that time and I didn't even realize. Then my dad called me and told me to bring him my kids or he was going to take them from me. And so I always tell people, I'm like, I am not scared of you. I'm scared of my dad and Jesus. That's it. Like, I was always a daddy's girl, and he wasn't scary. He was not mean. Mean when he drank whiskey, but I was never like scared, like terrified of him or anything.
Yeah.
He called. I just did what he said, he called and I took my kids over there and, he said, I know you have a problem, whether you're going to admit it to me right now or not. And he basically like told me he knew what I was doing and took my kids. He said, I worked my whole life to give you guys all of this. And if you want to fuck up your life, I'll give it to your kids because you're not going to put them through this. And if you don't want to raise them and take them on vacations and this, that, and the third, then I will. And he took them from me. I think everybody thought it was going to take way less time for me to get my shit together. I guess they had already planned it. My mom called CSB on me. My dad took them. I gave my dad custody of them. Went to court, all that. And I think everyone just thought I was going to like go to rehab and get my shit together because my kids were like my whole life. Like I never even went to a club or went out or anything. I was going to school to be a nurse and worked at a daycare and had 2 kids at that point in time.
So now you sorry, smoker's cough.
Yeah, I feel it.
So now your kids are with your dad. Are you still with that dude or did you leave him?
Couple months after, I don't even know if it was a couple months. It was like right around when my dad got my kids. I left because Children's Services told me that the fastest, easiest way to get my kids back was to do juvenile drug court. So I went to juvenile drug court. I got my first mugshot in juvenile drug court for child neglect. And I was so embarrassed because I had worked at that daycare and like so many families knew me and like so many people thought like so highly of me, and I was like, child neglect is like the worst fucking thing in my eyes that I could have went to jail for.
Yeah.
So I went to jail. They put me in. I voluntarily signed up for juvenile drug court, 7 meetings a week, IOP 3 times a week. I had to talk to a mentor, go to a couple different groups, classes. It was like a whole day's schedule worth of stuff, 7 days a week I had to do and drop. And I missed 1 drop and they put me in jail.
Is it drop like a UA?
Urine.
Yeah, is it drop a urinalysis?
Yep.
Okay.
I've never heard anybody call it a UA before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I dropped dirty a lot of times. And they kept, putting me in more stuff. And then I ran out of the courtroom one day. I was like, you know what? I voluntarily signed up for this. I'm voluntarily unsigning myself up for this. And I wasn't ready. So
were you back on heroin?
At that time, yes, I was. I was on heroin at that time.
How were you finding it since you were getting it from your ex before then?
He used to go get it, and like looking back once I got a little bit smarter, I think he used to want to go get it all the time so he could take some before we split it or whatever, because I was always the one that like came up with money. So um I just knew all his people. I knew some numbers. He had me pull up a couple places before and get it when he was sick at work or whatever, and I had to go fix him. And then
Were you still snorting it, or did you
I was.
graduate? Okay.
Yep, I was. And then about that same time, before I got unsuccessfully discharged from juvenile drug court, I started dating one of the guys I was buying dope from. So I was with him for 2 years.
No kids with him?
No kids with him. No, he had kids that were always around, and I'm a kid person, so like everyone I was around, like their kids were mine, and kind of still are.
And your dad still had yours?
Yeah, yeah. But now, like, I'm grateful for that now, because I realize that he saved them from a lot of stuff. I used to be
Yeah.
pissed. I used to be so mad. I'm like, he's such a piece of shit for not letting me see my kids and stuff. But like, I've thanked him like 100 times since I got clean, because I'm grateful. Now I didn't know. He said he wasn't gonna let. When I got clean, he said I told him when I signed over custody to him that I said, protect my kids, even if that means from me. Now, I don't remember that, but my dad, that's not even the exact words. My dad remembers what I said word for word. And he told me, he said, honey, you gave me one job to do when I took your kids, and that was to protect them. And you said, even if it meant from you and their dad, and that's all I, tried to do. So
It's a
yeah,
good dad.
yeah. Better, a great dad. And I'm glad that I got my shit together and, am able to tell him that now and see why he took them from me.
I know what that's. My dad was a great dad too, and I'm glad he got to see me sober before he died. Because we ran a business together, and at one point I was stealing money from the business to support my habit.
Yeah.
And I paid that money back in full. I had it coming out of my paycheck.
That's great.
And I paid it back. And it was $10,000 over the course of like 5 months of this little scheme I was doing to get money from the business. And I paid it all back in 20 weeks, $500 a week.
Wow.
And paid it all back. And so my dad gave me chances, multiple chances.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he got to see me get clean and sober. And I had a relapse after he passed away last year. And I relapsed with benzos and weed. And I was smoking all day long. I was snorting Valium, you know what I mean? Like I was doing really reckless shit again. And then my wife called me out on it, and I got clean again. And I had a dream. I had a problem with talking, like saying God when I first got clean 6 years ago. I had a real problem with, using that word in AA.
Yep.
And then I had a dream like a month into being sober again and going to meetings every day. I had a dream that I woke up and my dad was sitting in the meeting, and he said, "Welcome back. I'm glad you're here."
Wow.
So, and I like woke up crying,
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it still, gives me goosebumps to think about that dream. But then I started saying God again, because, that was a sign from God, like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I know what that's like to have a dad disappointed in you that you looked up to and idolized.
Yeah.
And so I know that feeling all too well, unfortunately. So you didn't get your kids back until you got clean 5 years ago.
They were gone for almost 7 years. When I was with the guy who was selling drugs, they decided to let me see my kids again after some months, and my dad told me I was done breaking promises, and he wasn't gonna keep letting me break promises because I'd be sick and I wouldn't show up or whatever. And I showed up at my mom's house. She had him for Christmas, And I walked in looking like Santa Claus because we had spent like $5 or $5,000 on like each kid for Christmas and stuff. Like it was like a shit ton of money. I had all these black garbage bags of toys. My kids didn't even open them. They just ran to me. They were worried about me leaving. They were wanting to know when I was, going to come back and stay and all kind of stuff. And I woke up the next morning and left to go feel better. And I went home at the time, and his brother had taken the last car we had that hadn't gotten impounded yet, and got it impounded. So I had no way to come all the way back out here because I was living in the inner city in Toledo. And my dad called me that night and let me listen to my kids cry. He stayed on the phone and let me listen to them cry, like wanted me to hear them crying for me. And he said that was the last time I could see them until I got my shit together. He was like, well, I hope you enjoyed it because that was your last time seeing them. You're not going to keep, fucking with them. And he didn't let me see them at all. At all. Sometimes I'd show up to my mom's house, and I hated coming home when I was messed up. So I rarely came home. It probably seems more frequently to them, but it seemed like forever to me. My sister was here with her kid at the time, and then she had the twins, and I just didn't like coming around. Especially my grandma. Still, that's one of the, things that you just said about your dad dying. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't know if my grandma dying or my mom or dad dying is going to hurt worse. I know my grandma's older, so that's the only thing that, might make it a little bit better, but my grandma is like my rock. Like when it came to everything, bonded me out, got my car out of impound, would bring me food no matter where I was, answer every phone call, all of that. When everybody else wouldn't, she would. And she came and got me one time for Easter. She came and picked me up. I don't even remember who I was with. I remember I was scared though, and I called her, and I didn't know she had my kids in the car. And she came with my kids in the car, and it was on Easter. And I ran out of the house, got in her car, and it was like, I guess I remember that part of it because it was so fucked up to me. Like I hadn't seen my kids in months, and I was in like, I remember I was scared, and I was in like this fucked up house with these crazy people. Dude tried to use a dog vaccine needle, and he was like fresh out of prison. Like I don't know, big ass dude, tattoos everywhere. Not that that doesn't even scare me now. I guess it was just like the environment we were in or
I was
something.
going to say,
I mean, I got tattoos all over too, but it doesn't scare me now. But I guess it was just like the fact that I really didn't know how to survive out in the streets on my own yet.
yeah.
And yeah, they were using like dog vaccine needles. And I was like, you know what? I'll just take mine on a plate. Like, I'll just store mine because I don't even know where to stick that.
Yeah. That's for times, right?
Yeah, right. And as the times go, as the days go on, as an addict, it obviously gets worse and worse. So that wasn't the worst thing I had ever seen. At the time it was, but
I remember there was one Easter that we celebrated Easter down the shore. It had to have been Easter 2009. And I'm from South Jersey, like minutes from Philadelphia, and down the shore was like an hour and a half away. Like the ocean and the beach and all that shit. We stayed down the shore in Jersey. And so we celebrated at my grandma's house. And then I left really early because I was getting sick. And I drove an hour and a half home just to like pick up pills and like sit in my bedroom and watch movies and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like didn't care about anything else that day.
It felt better.
I felt better.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was going to chain smoke cigarettes and watch movies in my room.
Yep. There was a few holidays my best friend passed away now. She was clean for 2 years. We had finally gotten clean together. And one holiday, I had nowhere to go. My house had just gotten raided. He had just went to prison. I didn't know how to survive on my own.
Can
And
we talk about that raid?
oh yeah,
Because that's you skimmed over it like everybody gets raided. You're like, the raid that always happens.
it's not normal to me anymore. But I mean, it still seems like just yesterday. So I was in 3 months. So my ex was trying to get me clean. And he went and got an apartment to sell out of. But he would give me $100 every morning before he'd leave for like gas and food and if I had the kids or whatever, his kids. And so I would just call somebody else who went to him and I'd just be like, hey, I'll buy you one if you buy me one. So they would go get my shit for me every morning with the money he would leave me every morning while he was trying to get me clean. So he went and got an apartment, and I had only ever been over there once because he needed to get it away from me so I could get my kids back and, whatever. They say drug dealer, like, mentality is, like, just as fucked up as addicts. And I truly believe that now. And I truly believe that all drug dealers aren't bad people. A lot of people will beg to differ, but I believe that wholeheartedly.
My drug dealer in the last 2 years of my using, I would sell for him. Like, I always knew everybody that were going to get 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't like that kind of guy where he's going to meet up for 3 pills. He'll meet up for like 30 pills,
Right.
but he wasn't going to meet up for 2 or 3. So I would get a big sale for him and collect all the money and then go see him. And then I would disperse him out to whoever made orders. And so I helped him out a lot over the last, couple of years. And one day, like, and your best friends become your dealer because you talk to them daily, right?
Yep.
So, like, I called him up and I'm like, dude, like, I got to go to rehab or I might not live anymore. And I don't know what to do because I owe you $1,800. Like, I was in debt to him from getting spotted $1,800.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, you go to rehab and I never hear from you again, you don't owe me the money.
Yep.
But if I hear you come back and you're getting high again, you owe me the $1,800 still. And
Yeah.
I still to this day haven't used opiates 6.5 years ago. And I'm still,
I had a couple people do that to me too, or wouldn't sell to me when they knew I had just gotten out of rehab, And so I've gotten a lot of arguments over it because I know a lot of good people that people would say they were evil, and I'm like, they're not though. They give you the shirt off their back.
So you were saying that your boyfriend had an apartment he was selling out of.
Yep. So he got an apartment he was selling out of, and I had the kids. We had not even went and seen him. We had went and took food. We had got food, took him food, and came back home. We were upstairs playing video games or whatever, and I heard a knock at the door, so I went to go downstairs to tell him where he was at, and it was the cops busting in, and I had never been in anything like that before, so I was like, what? Who is it? And they were like, DEA, whatever they scream, open up, and they had this big ass thing they were trying to put through the door, and his brother was there at the time, his cousin was there at the time, his brother's baby mom and her kids, or their kids, and all the kids were crying for me. And so his daughter was sitting on my lap, his son was attached to my hip. They brought me the dog because his kids were crying about the dog that was on the porch, and they kept saying, did you kill my dad? And the cops were like, no, we didn't kill him, but we got him. To back up a little bit, somebody called me from the apartment complex and told me he got busted. So I went flying over there, and I left them with his mom. Went flying over there, did 70 the whole way on 35-mile-an-hour streets and shit. And got there, and everything was flipped and tipped and fish flopping on the floor and stuff. And they were like, a couple people that didn't like him in the apartment complex, they got him good. They got him leaving and coming home. So I call his cousin, who had just got done doing 20 years in prison. And I'm like, we got to get him out. How do we get him out? I don't know how anything works at the time. And so he's on his way over, and then they came to the house too. So they got him at both places. Um, it was really crazy. They went through everything, except for his mom's room. His mom stayed upstairs, and she was, I'd say, more or less handicapped. And the only room they didn't touch was her room, and that's where he had like 2 boxes of money hidden in her closet that they didn't find. I was like, that's really weird. We had a whole room full of clothes, and they literally took out all the soles of every shoe. They, like a wall full of shoes, out of the boxes, soles out. All of the jeans, they flipped the pockets in. They found $30,000 worth of the baggies that I had stolen from him in my sweatshirt pocket, and came downstairs asking whose they were. It was really crazy. There was a lot of kids there. Five kids. Yep. Fast forward, we got him out. He went to see his lawyer. Oh, well, they got all of us out because I got arrested too.
Oh, did you really?
Me, his cousin, his brother, and him. I got arrested because I had warrants. So that's the only reason why. So the guy he got all his shit from got us all out. And one of the bondsmen that like knows all the dope boys around here. So she got us all out, and the next day he went to go meet with the lawyer, and I was sick. So I took the car and went and picked up my friend who I was just talking about. And we went to get shit, and apparently that guy's house where we went, they were watching him. So I'm driving down the street, like a pretty well-known street for drugs, prostitutes, all that, and I see 2 big black SUVs behind me. And I'm like, put your shit away, put it away, swallow it, do something, they're going to get us. And everyone was like, no, they're not. And I was like, okay. So sure enough, I got stopped at a light, and they flung open all the doors and told us all to get out and get on the ground and all kind of shit. And he said the dude's name where we had just gotten the stuff from, and he said they've been watching him for 3 months and was pulling everybody over that was leaving his house. And so, my kid, I'm surprised they left me alone this long. So they told me they didn't have to take me to jail because I had already taken care of my warrants because I had just gotten out like 8 hours prior. So he said, you're not new to this. You knew what you were doing. All this other stuff, we're taking you. And they charged me with felony conveyance of drugs in a motor vehicle, I think was the charge. So I went back to jail. And then they were like, didn't we just let you out? I'm like, yeah, I'm back.
I got arrested after leaving a dealer's house too.
Yeah.
I was
Really
leaving
crazy.
his house, and what's crazy is he would always let me get high in his kitchen before I left. He would let me break up some 30s and snort them before I left.
Mm-hmm.
And on this day, he said, no, you can't. And so I got in my car, and I was driving to my other friend's house across town, and I didn't realize it, but I was being followed by a cop the entire time.
So he was watching you?
Yeah. And by the time I was driving through a school zone, he pulled me over, and they tried to charge me with intent to distribute in a school zone. I was like, dude, you pull me over.
Distribute what? I'm about to put this on my nose.
Yeah, like I had 20 on me.
Oh. Kind of a big number.
Yeah.
For
So
personal use.
Yeah, well, I lived an hour and a half away. I lived an hour and a half away, so I was stocking up for a couple of days.
Right.
I was doing that drive 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Where I would drive an hour and a half each way to get pills. For the last 2 years of my addiction, that's what I did. So you went back to jail. They charged you again.
Yep, I got out in a couple hours. He used like the rest of the stuff that they didn't take and the money to get me back out again. They put strips on our street. It was like a brick road. It was in the old South End, which you don't know what I'm talking about, but it was like one of them old brick roads that they hadn't paved over yet, and they put strips over the end of our street to count the cars and put up a construction sign saying that they were going to do road construction, road closed and whatever. And then they kept driving by, but he didn't do much during that time. He had already been to prison and knew he was going back, basically. They had found a gun, which is basically what he got the time for, not even the drugs, really. But he was already a felon. And that's when people started dying, like, around me that I knew.
What year is this?
2000. Let's say 2000. My daughter was 2. I went to her last. So my daughter was 3. So, like, this is like within a couple years. No, within the year that I lost them. Probably about a year and a half after I lost my kids. So 14, 15. And people started dying. I didn't know about that. Like, I didn't know anybody really who had died from overdose and all that stuff. And he went to prison, and I was just out here by myself for the first time ever. Didn't even have a clue what I had gotten myself into, you know. So obviously I called some people that I knew from being over, you know, at our house. And I was like, hey, I don't know what to do here. Can you teach me something? Because I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to get money, you know. And so my thing was stealing from stores, and I hung around with a couple girls that prostituted that would get hotel rooms for like weeks at a time. And so we'd go to the store and I'd do my fair share while they were doing what they did back at the hotel, and kept going to jail for that. Lost a few friends along the way. I think everybody that I'm thinking of right now is dead that I used to be around for real, except for a couple of them. A few people are still out in the streets. Maybe a few people got their shit together. I was clean for a year when I had my son, who is 7 now. After he had went to prison, we stayed together for like some months. And then I met the guy that I've been with for 8 years now. And I joke all the time. I'm like, he had no idea what he was getting himself into. So, I had my son, went back out. They say every time you go back out, it gets worse. And I believe that shit because it got really bad. And then I got the 7 felonies. I actually have a similar story to yours, only it was with my grandma. My dad had bought my great-grandparents' house from her, and she had given me her card a few times to go get money to drop, and I would like pull out 100, take an extra, then do another transaction for 100, you know, and she just wouldn't see it because at the time she had so much money in her account. What's up, baby? No, I'm not done yet, or I still wouldn't be talking. She had so much money in her account, she just didn't notice. And so I'd call her at work, and I would have her meet me places, and I used, you know, there's nothing I probably could say that other people haven't used. She would come. And the last time she came, I had finally agreed to go in somewhere. I went in somewhere. My mom called and told them that my car was there. They came and repoed my car because she thought it would make it harder for me to get high if I left, if I didn't have a car. And my grandma was going to get it out for me, and my dad and my uncle told her that if she did, they weren't talking to her anymore. and that she had to quit enabling me. So when I had my son, he got taken from the hospital. They wouldn't give him to his dad because I didn't have custody of my other kids, and they didn't trust that he would be able to decipher our relationship from that relationship, or, like the father-son relationship, and what was in the best interest for the kid. So we gave our son to his mom for the time being, only he had him all the time. And I really was in and out. My grandma had gotten all that money, and I got a hold of one of her checkbooks, and I wrote a check, and it worked. And I wrote a check, took it to Kroger's, bought a gift card with it, Western Union myself the money, drove across the street to the Rite Aid, and got the Western Union. So it was so easy. It was like I was so sick. I did it, and got away with it. A stupid wind chime. I did it and got away with it. And so, the next time I was sick, I did it and got away with it. And it was just real easy to do, instead of trying to make up all these excuses why I haven't been home for 6 hours and, all that stuff. And then before you know it, I guess, she's called my dad. She must have seen it somehow and called my dad. And my dad actually went to the cops and pressed the charges on me. And told me I wasn't going to do to his mom what my uncle had been doing to my other grandma, my mom's mom, because he was a heroin addict. And that they were all done with me. So I got arrested going to work one day. They thought I was they thought I was one of the dope boys that lived a couple streets over from the guy I was going to see, because it was the same kind of car. And it had really tinted windows. And so they pulled me over and they're like, "Oh, you're not who we're looking for." And I was like, "Who you looking for?" So they asked me my name and my birthday and all that, asked me for my driver's license. I didn't have one. So I gave them my work ID. And first time I ever ran from the cops, I flung open the door, and he did over the microphone, and he's like, "Don't fucking do it." And I was like, I had called the guy who I was going to his house to get shit to feel better before work, and I was like, "Open your back door." He's like, "It's already unlocked. I already seen." I was like, "Okay, great." So I got out of the car, ran. The back door wasn't far. I slid all the way down the stairs, and I was hiding behind his washer and dryer. And at this time, I'm sure they already knew who I was and, that I had all the warrants and stuff. And I thought everybody ran back upstairs, and I heard one of the cops say, there was a bunch of cars that had pulled up at that point, and I heard one of the cops say, "Did she go out the front? Is there another door in here?" All this stuff. And I'm like, they think I back door, front doored them, they think I got through the house quick as shit and I'm gone. So I just stood there, and I was in such an awkward position. I was smushed up between the wall and the washer and dryer. And I tried to fix myself before they came back, looking again. And so I swung my one foot around because my legs were starting to shake, and I already had hid my little kit, I guess you could call it, I had with me, and I threw the shit I had, and I stepped on a Starburst wrapper. And then there was a red beam on my forehead. And one of the cops stayed in the basement, but he was being real quiet, probably waiting for me to come out and think the coast was clear, like I halfway did, trying to fix myself. And he got me, and he actually looked at the guy I went to buy drugs from, and he's like, "You need to choose better friends." And I was like, "Oh, really?" He needs to choose better friends. At the time it was funny that they said that to him. I'm like, he needs to choose better friends. I'm the bad guy here. But yep, I went to jail.
And that's what got you clean?
Got out. And then the beginning story, got out and had all them violations on my ankle monitor. And the judge told me he had daughters my age, and if he let me out and I died, he would never forgive himself. And then they brought me back into the courtroom a month later to give me a plea deal. Well, a month later at my next hearing, I was in the county jail, and they brought me in for court. And the two guys that cut my ankle monitor off, they were like, "Wow, like you look a lot different just in 30 days. Like you have color back in your face." And they could tell, like they remembered me and they could tell. Which kind of it meant a lot at the time, because I think that last time, ripping and running the way I was, he worked well, the guy I've been with for 8 years, we now have two kids together. He was working third shift, so I basically was living two different lives. Like during the day, I would go do me and then have dinner ready and feel great by the time he got home from work. And so he was kind of oblivious to what I was doing too. I don't. Sometimes I like to think that they aren't as oblivious as I would like to think he was, because he obviously knew different
Yeah.
stuff.
You have one
But
of those crazy before and afters.
I surprisingly do not have like a terrible one. And I think it's because I didn't take a lot of pictures when I was using.
Yeah,
Like I
me
have
neither.
random pictures where I'm like, damn, you look really bad, but not no
I,
like picked up face mugshot or nothing, no.
I looked in my Snapchat the other day,
Hmm.
and in my Snap history from 7 years ago was me doing a giant line. Like I took a Snap video that I sent to somebody, and I saved it in my Snap history of me breaking up a pill and doing a big line of 4 in one line.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, this is the shit I was taking snaps of back in the day.
Happens to me all the time. Like memories will pop up in my Facebook and I'm like, what in the hell were you even trying to say? Like you sound stupid, you know?
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
dumb. But yeah,
So
I
you
don't have
had
a
some
crazy
color.
picture.
You had your color back in your face though.
Yes, and I felt a little bit, I got through that last I think it was during the time where fentanyl had became a thing. Um that's when you really start hearing about fentanyl here, at least.
Yeah.
And I remember I hadn't ate or drank in days. Like just sitting on the fucking cot in jail, and I couldn't eat or drink. Like the thought of taking a drink or a bite of food like literally made me sick. And someone was like, "You cannot lay here like this. Like you need water." So they gave me lunch head came around and they gave me a little styrofoam cup of Kool-Aid, whatever they call it, orange colored water. And I took a drink of it and I puked everywhere. And I don't know how it is like in other cities, but like the county jail here, I've heard isn't as bad as like people will say like from Detroit and stuff, but it's pretty terrible. They've talked about building a new one for like 12 years. It has mold and like rats and like all kinds of stuff. So it was terrible. And they don't care about you. There's a lot of people who have died in the Lucas County Jail from overdose. People bringing drugs in and then they'll get somebody high that's been in there for, all that time and they die. And I actually know somebody personally I went to school with that died in there a couple of weeks after he'd been in there. And they just didn't care. Like they'd give you Tylenol. And I'm like, Tylenol doesn't help. Like I'm literally over here dying. And I think that was probably one of the worst detoxes. Not because I was using a lot, but because I think that's when the fentanyl became a thing, and it was way worse because I was using way more. Previous times I had been to jail and didn't even get sick like that. So
Good. It
yeah,
made it hurt.
yeah,
Sometimes like when I went to rehab, they were offering me Suboxone,
yeah.
and I turned it down. And I was doing like 200 to 300 milligrams of Roxy a day when I got to rehab.
Hmm.
They were like, "You need Suboxone," and I was like, "I'm not going to take Suboxone." And they were like, "Why not?" Like upset with me that I wasn't
Yeah,
going to do it. And I said, "Because I needed to hurt.
yeah.
I needed to be uncomfortable, so I don't want to come back here again in a year."
Because
And
I had been on Suboxone a couple times, and every time I sold them.
yeah, exactly.
And
Or
so that
you're
last time I said the same thing. I'm like, I don't want nothing. I want
and
nothing.
I'm all for Suboxone to get off opiates. Don't get me wrong, but I think they're overprescribed.
Absolutely.
I think taking 1 or 2 strips a day is just overkill. Like if you can go 4 days and then take them, you shouldn't even start it. You should just
Right.
continue, be sick for 3 more days, and not have to take anything.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Vivitrol
That's what
because
I got on.
okay, good.
Yep. When I was clean for the year period of time that I had when I had my son, that's what I went on.
Vivitrol is amazing.
Yep. And then they wouldn't release me from jail. That was one of my orders. I had to sign up for felony drug court. That was part of my plea deal. Felony drug court, CTF, which is a lockdown treatment facility. Programming all day. It's real uncomfortable to make you
Yeah.
talk about shit, And then I had to go back to the county a week before I got out. I think it was exactly 7 days before I got out. They took me back to the county, and me and the couple girls I went back to the county with to get on the Vivitrol shot before they'd release us, we were all excited. I mean, that had become normal to us. And we're like, we get to go back to the county, we get to see our friends and, shit like that. And we got there, and we were only supposed to be there for like 6 to 8 hours or something. And they left us in there for 2 days, I want to say. And it was the most miserable time I had ever been in the county jail. And I think it's because they had put me through that lockdown facility programming and all that. And I had it in my mind that last time when I had all those felonies, when I got caught, I was done. Like, I was tired. And something had to give. And so I went back to the county, and I was just miserable. Like, I was like, why were we so excited to come back here? Like, this became normal to us, and I was clear-headed. I was locked up for a month and a half in the county jail, then CTF for 3 months. Then they took me back to the county jail, and I was just, it was disgusting. It was so terrible. And I said to myself, I will never come back here again unless someone fucks with my kids. That's the only exception. Fuck with my kids, I will do time. But that's the only exception. Like, I can't believe that became so normal. It was like a home away from home almost.
Yeah.
And it was all fun and games in there, minus the detox part. But
Oh yeah, and what is your before we end? What is your nonprofit that you started with your husband?
so it's not with him. He's just my support and all my crazy ideas. My best friend that I was talking about, she's my best friend of 17 years. We went through everything together in life, and we were finally sober together. So I had 2 years, she had 1 year. She was going on 2 years when she passed. And she went back out. She was a counselor for a big Zeph. I don't know if you guys have that down here or down there. Zeph housing, rehab, it's rehab housing. And she was doing really good. She went back out. Nobody knew about it, and she died. I think it was probably like within the first few times she used when she went back out that time.
That happened to one of my best friends too. We both got sober at the same time. He was in Florida, I was in LA. We shared a back fence for 12 years. You know what I mean? And then we talked to each other all the time from LA to Florida. And then we both came back around the same time. And then he overdosed. I mean, he relapsed around Halloween and he overdosed like 2 days later.
Yeah. So when she overdosed, we're not sure how long she was using for. She always told me the cocaine was a thing for her, not the heroin. Like, when she was clean off heroin, it was good. It's always the cocaine. So I'm pretty sure she tried to either smoke crack or do coke, and it probably was laced.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. She called me that Saturday. What day was it? My kids were in school, so was it Monday, Tuesday? She called me Saturday. She was not really. Oh, I was lagging or something. She was not really herself, and she said she was having a really hard time separating work from home and her own recovery from work. And that she really wanted to see me. She missed me. It had been like a few weeks since we seen each other because we were both doing our own recovery thing and, trying to figure out sober life. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, bring kids over this weekend, yada yada. And she was like, I don't get me wrong, I have friends, but like I don't have friends like you that literally know everything about me. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I asked her, I'm like, are you sure you're okay? She's like, yeah, I'm okay. You don't have to worry about me. You don't have to worry about me. I'm fine that way. And I was pushing a cart through Kroger's, and I still to this day, when I tell the story, sorry, if she would have told me that something was wrong, I would have stopped what I was doing and went and got her. But she lied to me, I think for the first time ever, like that I'm aware of. And it still really bothers me. And I think it's because we were both clean for the first time and we had like so many plans that she just didn't want to be like a failure or like let down, disappointment, all that stuff, because she was telling everybody she was fine. But she left. Her and her husband got married on my birthday. We have 4 kids. She has 4 kids. I have 4 kids. They're all the same age, opposite sex. And they have been together since, is it 14 years now? And she had left her husband and was like doing irrational things. But people do irrational things when they get sober and realize they don't really love somebody like they used to, or, like whatever.
Yeah.
And, her mom was calling me worried about her and all kind of stuff. And then she just, yep, they found her in her car. She was staying with some girl she met at the methadone clinic. She was no longer on methadone. She was on methadone for some years, but she had been off it for a couple years at this time. And she was with this girl, and she took her to rehab, and the girl left because it was COVID, and they said she had COVID, so she couldn't stay. And she died in the girl's grandma's driveway, where it was on the news. There were so many overdoses in her driveway. And her grandma had custody of her kids that she still has custody of. I don't know how. I still try to wrap my mind around how certain things happen. And they left her in her car in below 8 weather, January. And her whole car was cleaned out. And if you knew her, you knew her car was never clean. You had to like sit on garbage to sit in her car because she like worked out of her car and lived out of her car, what she was using for real. And her whole car was cleaned out. And they had her purse inside. And to our knowledge, because the girl has given us like 8 different stories, she didn't call the cops. She called the guys they were getting high with the night before and then called the cops. And she left. She left because she was on parole and left her to die in her car in below 8-degree weather. So when that all happened, her mom called me and was like, Haley's gone. And I was like, all right, so where do we fucking start looking? Like, this isn't the first time.
Yeah.
And her mom started crying and was like, no, Jess, she's gone. Like, they called me. I'm on my way to the hospital with her husband. And if you want to meet us there, you can. So the last time I seen her, I took a picture. I asked her mom and her husband if that was okay. And I said, maybe one day when we can tell our stories and I can show people, like what the reality of it is when we're strong enough to do that, because I still have it in a hidden folder because I still can't look at it. But she had tubes down her throat, blood all over. She was dead. They tried to revive her the whole way to the hospital because she had a faint heartbeat, but they couldn't revive her. And so in the waiting room, while her husband was calling, coroners and stuff, we decided that we were going to start something in her name. And that's how we came about starting Project Halo, is the name of it. And I started with a Facebook page. I made a Facebook page because we really didn't know how to start or where to start or what we even wanted to do with it. And it's gotten pretty big, I'd like to think. We have, I can't tell you exactly how many followers because I invite people all the time, like 600 something followers or members on the Facebook page. And we've been having sober events. We were doing online meetings, but it was so sporadic because I have 4 kids and they all play sports and my life is a crazy. This is the most quiet my life has been. I don't even know why everyone's leaving me alone right now. So it really didn't pick up the meetings. We'd have like 4 or 6 people, on the online thing. But we really want to do in-person meetings. We just haven't really found a place that is willing to work with us, being a nonprofit and not having the funds to like rent a building every month or anything yet.
Check churches.
Churches, yeah, churches is a good one. We did Chalk the Walk. We didn't do it. We participated in it. That was our first thing. Downtown Toledo. And then we did a barbecue and we did a Rock for Recovery. We had 7 bands come. We had food catered, all that. It was free for anybody who was in recovery to get in. And then we did like raffle and stuff. We kept it pretty cheap so people could afford to come. I don't care for when people are like, oh, it's $100 a ticket. And I'm like, who in a domestic violence relationship or who in recovery or, whatever can pay $100 a ticket to get in. So you're targeting like the wrong audience. So trying to target the right audience and like starting from the bottom with nothing. We have had a couple of people donate. Her mom's work donated a lot of money to us. Well, our biggest check so far, it was like $1,500, which we put back into our next event that is coming up on Haley's birthday, November 8th. We're going to do a light the path of sobriety and light lanterns.
That's awesome.
Yep, and have some speakers and stuff. So
Send me
that's
the
as
link.
far as we've made it.
Send me the link and I'll put it in the bio for the description.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, well, I appreciate you sitting down. I know you have a hectic life going on, 4 kids and
It's
everything.
fine. I made dinner that's been on the stove the whole time that I knew was going to take a long time to cook.
So I appreciate it, Jess. I really do.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate you.
So I'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty, cool.
All right, have a good day.
All right, thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.